Here we are. This is a webinar on awakening. And hello, everyone. Welcome to my webinar on awakening, the second stage of spiritual unfoldment. So let's begin. So the Tarot Tableau is one of the many arrangements of the 22 major arcana cards. At the top, we find the Fool, and the remaining 21 cards, or keys, are in 7 columns of 3 cards each. Each of the 3 rows represents an attribute. The top row contains 7 principles, or dominant mental states. So that would begin with the Magician, the High Priestess, the Empress. That's the top row. The second row represents agencies or activities, and the bottom row consists of the conditions or expressions of the principles of the upper row manifesting through the agencies of the middle row. So here we have the 7 columns. This is all very similar to when I gave the talk on bondage, but it's an introduction for the first few slides for those who may not have seen the bondage webinar. Each of the 7 columns represents a level or stage of spiritual unfoldment. Each stage a foundation or preparation for the next. From the left to the right, the columns represent bondage, awakening, revelation, organization, regeneration, realization, and cosmic consciousness. A worthy goal. So far, we've covered the stage of bondage, a concept not too difficult to wrap our minds around. That seems to be an easy term to think about. In our discussion of that spiritual stage, we began to realize that there's more than meets the eye. But how do we acquire the ability to experience more than what our senses tell us? Here we have the 3 keys, the High Priestess, the Hermit, and the Tower, and they consist of the column for awakening. So to begin to do that opening up of ourselves, let's now explore the second column called awakening. Here we have the High Priestess as the active principle at the top. Below her is the Hermit Key, the agency through which the active principle represented by the High Priestess moves. And below the Hermit is the condition of awakening as represented by the Tower Key. Let's see how these 3 keys interact and how that interaction can change your life. First of all, what do we mean by awakening? You could define it as a recognition, realization, or coming into awareness of something. So here we are, our entire life appearing to be based on our sensory experiences. That would be what you see is what you get. Pretty much what the deceiver would have you believe. But there's a part of us that wonders about that. We hear others talking about their spiritual experience or experiences. How is it possible that others have had these experiences and you haven't? Or you have, but you're not quite sure what's going on. Is it a one-time thing? Sometimes we have an inkling that there's more, that some of our experiences are more than just coincidences or happenstance or just plain luck. So how is that possible? How can we gain this experience of more? And what is this more? Your experience. The 3 keys in this column will help you solve this riddle. They will help you to begin to have the experiences that will be the beginning of your knowing that there's more. Because no matter what someone else says, or you read in a book or online, until this is your experience, you are asleep. At this point, you may wish to review the 3 tarot cards on my website before going on. I will also cover the meanings of the 3 letters corresponding to the keys and the symbology of the 3 keys here, but a review of the individual keys either now or at the end of this post will help their message become more clear. It will become more of an active part of your life. So it's important to review the 3 cards. So, of course, we're not going to do that right now fully. We will talk about the cards as they express awakening. But when you go back and look over these 3 cards, pretty much after you checked in on this webinar, you may find certain memories will start welling up into your mind and make things a little more clear that we cover here. So that's always a good idea to review the 3 cards after we go through one of these webinars on 3 cards. The 3 Hebrew letters. Gimel is the Hebrew letter attributed to key 2, the High Priestess. It is a double letter and therefore has 2 meanings. They are the opposites, peace and strife. As a noun, Gimel means camel, which relates to travel and communication. So something about this, if you'll remember about the High Priestess, is because Gimel represents the opposites, peace and strife. If you are thinking in terms that all you see is all there is, that there is nothing more than the physical, that's the strife part. If you start to move on into realizing that there is more, the manifestation of peace will take place in your life. So that's an understanding of how these dual meaning letters work in your life. The Hebrew letter for the Hermit Key 9 is Yod. As a noun, it means touch or the hand of man. The top of the Yod, and to the right you can see there's a little picture of a Yod. So the top of the Yod symbolizes primal will, and the lower part symbolizes wisdom. The Yod is the foundation of all of the 22 Hebrew letters. And if you go back and when we look at the card for the Hermit, you'll see that his hat is a Yod, and it's blue. Peh is the Hebrew letter for the Tower Key 16. It also is a double letter and has 2 meanings, grace and sin. So these again are the opposites. So Peh relates to Mars, which symbolizes war and rash action. But Mars is also the driving force behind all successful activity. Interesting. That's something you can digest, thinking about that. As a noun, Peh means mouth as the organ of speech and relates to the power of utterance or speech. So now we just talked about the 3 letters. This is important to understand. You have one letter that means peace and strife. The second one symbolizes primal will and wisdom and is within every Hebrew letter. And the third one has 2 meanings of grace and sin, which some people think of Mars is this heavy, red activity, war, acting without thinking. But the opposite is peace and thinking before you act. And it all stands for the use of your word. The High Priestess is identified with what is variously labeled by modern psychologists as subconscious mind, subliminal mind, subjective mind. It has also been called transliminal consciousness. Transliminal means across the threshold. That should trigger some interesting thoughts. The threshold being going down the tree of life, and it's crossing the abyss which is directly before the top three sephirols or spheres of the tree of life. So all that manifests below the feminine aspect of understanding the third sphere comes through the feminine. So transliminal means across the threshold. According to Paul Foster Case, who is an amazing person when it comes to the tarot, this seems to be a more accurate description of the consciousness symbolized by the High Priestess. It conveys no impression of inferiority, as do the terms subconsciousness and subliminal, because of the prefix sub. This mode of consciousness is identified with what the Hindu philosophers called Prakriti. And they tell us that Prakriti and Purusha represents the witness, the magician, the objective consciousness, that these two coexist, are co-equal and co-eternal. Another attribute of the High Priestess is that psychologists have found out by experiment that the subjective mind seems to have perfect memory. Nothing that you have ever experienced has been forgotten. The scroll of the High Priestess symbolizes this cosmic memory. You see the scroll with the word Terra on her lap. And, if you will note, this cosmic memory we have access to. If you recall the entire tarot tableau, you will see this water coming from her skirt, and it flows through most of the cards until the end, and I call it the stream of consciousness, which flows through all. Keep in mind that the fact that the two aspects of the life power are coexistent. Purusha and Prakriti, objective and subjective, magician and High Priestess. We may say that the life power is both. It is the unity of which these are the poles. The two poles are present wherever the life power is present, and they are present in their entirety. What appears to us to be personal manifestations of objective or subjective consciousness, they are really manifestations of the one life power in either its objective or subjective modes. But both modes are always present, always there. The balance is always attainable. We are not separate beings. The method that the life power uses to express itself in existence results in the illusion of personal separateness. But we are able, by the exercise of reason, to find out that this is an illusion. After reason has taken us this far, we can go on and make experiments, which forever free us from the delusions caused by that illusion. Some say that in the manifestation of the life power into physical form, into a denser matter, we end up not seeing everything, and that is the case. And the case is we need to work our way back to return. This is a normal cosmic experience. There is nothing wrong going on here. We have to remind ourselves continually that we are not separate beings until we have established a subconscious habit of recognizing our essential identity with the life power. Careful observation of nature enables us to discover the essential unity of being behind the veil of manifold appearances. This discovery must then be transferred from the field of objective consciousness to the subjective mind. That's an interesting concept. We make the discovery by closely watching what happens in the plane of existence that we contact through sensation. So we use our senses. We use touch, taste, hearing, sight. We use those. But then we have to do something with them. From that plane, we get the facts, which are utilized in the objective process of inductive reasoning, which also means we have to understand them in their reality without false impressions. So we have to be careful how we observe and what we observe. At this point, we don't experience the unity of being, as we will later experience it as we become riper. You could say we're all sort of like a pear on the tree. At some point, it becomes fully ripe, and then it drops off the tree. But right now, most of us are still hanging on to that tree and still ripening up. We now perceive it intellectually as a premise or hypothesis, which we then turn over to the subjective mind. This is the seed that the magician plants in his garden. And knowingly doing this, I repeat myself, knowingly doing this will open up all sorts of revelations to you. This is really important to be conscious that you're doing this. Let's remember from the post on the High Priestess that the subjective mind is continually amenable to suggestion. It controls all the vital functions in the body. It determines cell structure. Consequently, when the subjective mind is impressed with the premise of the unity of being, every cell of the billions of cells in your body are modified. Each one is modified by that impression. The cells are units of subjective consciousness. This is why you can use your word to heal. The suggestion accepted by the subjective mind tinges the consciousness of all of the cells. So you have to be, of course, use discrimination as to what you tell the subjective mind and then how you do it so it receives it. The subjective mind does not like yelling and loud noises. Keep that in mind. It does like stories, though. From the moment the objective mind impresses the subjective mind with the premise of non-separateness, the mental state of all of the cells begins to be changed. Hallelujah. Some cells do not adapt well to this new condition of personality and die off. As you may recall, science has determined that your entire body of cells die off every 7 years. So there's hope in a 7-year cycle of getting this right. Their places are taken by new cells, new wineskins, to hold the new wine of the new idea. So you may have heard about this in the New Testament, about making a new, you cannot put new wine in old wineskins. It will burst the wineskin. And this is an elaboration of that. This is the truth behind that saying. Thus, a gradual change is made in the structure of your body until a moment arrives when there is a sufficient number of new cells. You reach a tipping point. This makes possible a flash of personal realization of the truth. Very different from reading this in a book or going to a lecture. You won't get it until this happens. This may take weeks or months or years. While these individual and imperceptible changes to your cell structure take place. Depends on how much encouragement, how much you discriminate in your life. You could goof off. It's the old couch potato thing. You know, we understand that in the physical. And this is very interesting because we do things, us humans, in the physical really well. We make everything, we go to gyms, we get our body in shape. We don't. We become couch potatoes. We have choices. But we don't realize that we have to do this through mind. So we need to get that clear, that we cannot move forward unless into the body of light to which we seek and will attain without bringing mind into the mix. You could even say meditation is a form of moving this along with your eyes closed, sitting still, and regenerating your body. That is so opposite to what people think. Well, I've got to run, I have to walk, I have to lift weights, do yoga, all these physical things. But we need to do it in mind for this flash to take place. You have no idea that these changes are taking place in your body. All at once, a flash of direct perception comes, and it seems to upset your whole house of life. So the seed has been planted, and it could be years or months later that you have this experience of the tower. And you may not be able to go 1 and 1 equals 2. You just go, oh, I've had this experience. I don't know where it came from. Wrong. It came from you. You planted the seed. You need to kind of get this clear in your head. So this can be a sudden, catastrophic glimpse of reality, such as shown in Key 16, the Tower. Sudden as this seems, it is the culmination of an orderly series of mental and physical changes. It comes to nobody who is not prepared to stand the shock. It destroys forever the delusion of separateness. This is just as a lightning flash gives a traveler a momentary clear glimpse of the dark road upon which he travels. The darkness may close in at the very next moment. Some of the details may fade over time, but that flash of realization cannot be forgotten. Thank God. The memory of it will spur on the traveler. It will give the traveler the courage to complete his journey, his or her journey. So here we have the Hebrew letter Peh. It is assigned to the Tower Key. It is called the exciting intelligence. That's the path. And the path joins victory, number 7, that little green sphere on the right, to splendor, number 8, on the tree of life. You wake up, let's see, Paul Foster Case calls it the tree of the living ones. That's an interesting take on the tree of life. Once you begin your journey on the tree of life, you wake up to the fact that you are one with the life power. You are among the living ones. This awakening experience is at once a realization that the I am, by reason of its own nature, is already the conqueror of all limitation. It is a flash of intuition, a flash which gives you a glimpse of the dazzling glory of the perfect expression of the limitless light. This flash of realization is a momentary sharing of the life power's perfect self-knowledge. It seems to contradict everything in your previous experiences. All of your previous experiences have been colored by the sense of separateness. Quote, I am the Lord and there is none else, unquote. That is now your experience. Prior to the experience, the human consciousness is, quote, I am a poor mortal surrounded by millions of other mortals who are all potential enemies and by natural conditions even more hostile and unfriendly, unquote. Quite a difference between I am the Lord and there is none else. To subtly see this as a lie, that you are poor mortal, to subtly see that you are immortal, to suddenly perceive that all other human beings in all conditions of personal experience, that they are working together to bring about the perfect realization of a cosmic plan. To see that this cosmic plan is in essence the outworking of the inmost reality of your own being. This is a total reversal of personal and race consciousness. This can knock you flat. Next time you're driving down the freeway and you look at all those people sitting in cars, the ones that have road rage, the ones that are very happily listening to classical music and are spaced out. When you go to a crowd or a football game or a baseball game and you look at all the thousands of people that surround you, they're yelling and screaming or sitting there on their telephones or listening to things, we're all in this together. We're all one. You are one with them. To have this realization that you are one with them really takes you to a place, and you know it from inside out. Nobody tells you this. That's really eye-opening. You don't acquire this experience. It doesn't come from outside. There comes a time in the evolution of the life power through your personality when the premise of the unity of being is formulated in your objective mind. That premise becomes a starting point of a series of subjective operations which build your body cells that can give expression to the life power's self-knowledge. This flash is your participation in the life power's perfect recollection of itself. For a moment you remember who and what you really are. The lightning flash is a ray of light from the hermit's lantern. To us it seems to be something new. In truth, the light bearer is close at hand, right here with us, now and always. I have presented the physiological changes that take place, but what takes place is far more than a physical phenomenon. This is an orderly manifestation of cosmic law. This is the safe trip. It's very important to do these things in a safe environment. That's why your body, your environment, must come along and be taken care of. If you were to take on the power of the sun in this current body, you would blow it up. It wouldn't make it. So, let's look at the Hermit Key. The agency of this change, the Hebrew letter Yod, is attributed to this key. Consider the astrological attributions of the letter Yod. The zodiacal sign is Virgo, and the small intestines are ruled by Virgo. We cover this on the Hermit Key 9 on my website, so it would be really great to review the Hermit Key. The planetary ruler of Virgo is Mercury. The ruling planet of the Magician Key is Mercury. So we've talked about Mercury on the Magician Key, which is the directing element. The second stage of unfoldment is experienced through a change of cell structure affected by the objective consciousness. These astrological correspondences point out the exact part of the body where the change takes place. They show under what specific influence it occurs. Again, review Key 9. Understanding this, you will be able to make special applications of the law of suggestion. This will accelerate the transformations of the cell structures. This brings about the experience described above. If you have already passed through this stage of unfoldment, then this knowledge will be of assistance in helping you to progress more rapidly through subsequent states. Remember the affirmation: the kingdom of spirit is embodied in my flesh. Thank you for attending my webinar on awakening, the second stage of spiritual unfoldment. Please go to my website on www.gatesoflight.com for more information about the symbols and colors of these keys. I will also be posting a recording of this webinar on my website. Does anyone have a question?
I just unmuted the attendees.
Margot?
Yes, Mary.
Hi. I've been sitting here just being blown away. Thank you.
Oh, you're experiencing this awakening, Bimla.
You know what? I had a memory of an experience come to me. The Tower card. I had a dream probably 2 years ago in December where the roof of a building was hit by lightning and it was taken off. In my dream, I thought I was in my hometown, and I saw the flash of lightning and I saw the flame. And it was one of those dreams, and then this great wind came and took the roof away from me, so I was safe. But I awoke from that dream, and I remember I was in training with Josephine at the time, and I told her about it. It was an experience. It was not just a dream.
Yeah.
And it was solidifying my calling at that time. But within a month, I was in the emergency room with an operation to repair a hernia of my small intestine. I'm looking at this stuff and I'm like, holy cow, no kidding. Wow. I could never really, I could feel the import, and what I time was, I am terrified of this power. That's what my being was feeling at the time, but I never could assign it any kind of structural integration until I've seen these. So that's really, yeah, it's really cool.
Yeah, if you read my blog on the ninth key, the Hermit, I talk about the intestines. And it's so amazing that today people are now talking about this, the microbiome, etc. But I had picked up probably about 10 years ago a treatise by Basil Valentine called his Triumphant Chariot of Anatomy, and it was written in 1678. And he talks about the same thing.
Wow.
And so when stuff started coming up now about the microbiome, I went, oh, that's the same thing that this famous adept was talking about. So I had picked it up at Amazon, and then I went, who would have thunk? It's like,
right,
how these are related. So the reason I picked up his book is because Paul Foster Case talked about him. That I just was totally amazed. And they call the chyle that the small intestines makes out of our food, and it's like a white creamy substance, as mother's milk.
Oh, wow.
Because, yes, because the intestines, everything that goes through that point then enters the bloodstream from that chyle. It enters the blood and the entire body. So what you put in your mouth really matters.
Yes.
What you eat, the fact that it's very interesting this is coming up now because there are so many pesticides in our diet and in the world's diet because of the proliferation of chemical companies throughout the world, that we are sitting here where our food supply is being poisoned. And the fact that this information is coming up about the intestines on a mass scale, not accepted by many because they don't even know about it. But the fact that it's being put out there, you can find all sorts of references to it on YouTube, is really interesting. That we have to be careful of what we eat. The whole idea of being organic, and then people say, well, eating organic food is really expensive. And just a few weeks ago, Safeway has put out an advertisement. This is a large grocery store, has said, you can eat organic, it's not expensive, we sell organic, and we make it possible for people to eat organically by our low prices.
Well, that's
Right.
nice. Oh, and Margaret, there's another question from another attendee who's called the Digital Alchemist.
Oh, yes.
He's written in a question that says, or she, where does the line between free will and destiny end? Is it a correct way to say the future is always changing from your actions in the present?
It would be correct to say that the future is always changing. Also, we always have free will. This is the statement where even God doesn't know where we're going. Seriously. If God knew everything, then there'd be no point in this manifestation. Everything would be done. He'd return to himself. But right now, he, she, it, we have free will. As you notice, we wage wars against each other. As we line up with our inner self, what we create enlivens us. And the only way you can have that experience is to start working on waking up and start working on these suggestions. It's not something someone can tell you. It appears that, okay, if I line up with God, then God is running the show. God doesn't know what's going to happen tomorrow. This is the point of this evolution. Is a reflection. God is reflecting on him, it, herself. And we are that reflection. And it's very entertaining. It's beautiful. It can be very scary. But it's the way the cosmic energy works. And we are co-creators with God, and therefore we have the ability, the ability to choose or not to choose to use these tools. Any more feedback from that question, if you have a further question?
Just wondering, have we considered,
I can hear you.
Oh, you heard me?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, you can just talk. You don't have to type.
You were typing furiously. I could never type that fast.
Hi. Yeah. Sorry. So yeah, I recently So I've been wondering. I recently had strange experiences, and I kind of found myself into tarot and blah blah blah. And I'm wondering, like, would this be considered as like a Gnostic experience, like the fact that we're interested in the symbols and we can see some of them in real life? And I mean, yeah. Sorry, I think that's like, is this considered as like a Gnostic experience, like that we know that someone is writing the script now? Um,
You're writing your script,
right. Oh,
your
okay.
personality.
Oh,
Everyone
okay.
has a different personality. We're not all the same. This is where the chaos comes in, or the lack thereof, if we get along with each other. And the experiences you have are yours.
Right.
It's a dichotomy.
I think
Yeah,
also
yeah.
what you said about that experience, the realization um, of knowing that we are all one being is the kind of the Gnostic experience that you're talking about. It's that realization when all the veils are gone and you realize that you're not separate, but we're all one, and you actually know that and experience it.
Right.
You walk around going, oh my God, oh my
Exactly.
God. I know why I'm here. I know what I'm doing.
So, like, is it normal to go through, like, yeah, so there's that element of shock, like, it's like I'm still not past the shock, it's like, it's crazy, it's because your whole reality is flipped, right? So it's like, I mean, how do you ever get over this, because
Well,
it's,
you really don't.
Hopefully you won't.
You never get over
You're
it
lucky.
because it evolves. It's absolutely, and then life becomes fun.
oh,
I mean, fun in the sense that you realize there's more to life.
yeah, exactly, exactly.
And the love starts flowing through you. And the idea of serving other people to help them have this realization so they can feel conceptually lighter and physically lighter and mentally lighter. You don't get over it. It just grows. I recall from the point where I had this experience many years ago, I would think my greatest point prior to this will sometimes equal my lowest point after this
Right.
of happiness.
And
So
I
you
agree.
will still go through waves, but they just stop being low, really low. But you will. There's always ebbs and tides. There's always, it's like the ocean. There are times when things slow down. There are times when things pick up and are faster in your experiences. And so you start to, it's not like straight up the mountain. You zigzag to the top of the mountain and allow yourself that, and allow yourself to grow that way. And surround and discriminate in what you think and what you say so that you feed your subconscious mind all these positive thoughts about other people, about yourself, harmlessness to others, kindness. Do something without thought of return to yourself, without acknowledgement to yourself. You start these patterns going, and it'll be exponential from this point on in your spiritual development, to the point you hit another tipping point, which is what we'll be covering in the next seminars.
So, just what is our obligation to? So I'm just okay. So I'm actually like, I happen to be like a creative person, so I realized that having this is like, it's a good thing. It's also scary, but I'm wondering, what is like our obligations to other people? Like, what are we supposed to um contribute, or is there a point to this besides just like our self growth, right? Because I realized that. But sorry, you were saying?
Well, you're thinking about responsibility.
Yeah, I mean, like, I'm wondering, like, I mean, like, based on some of this knowledge, because I realized that, okay, I have used this knowledge in a negative way one time, and I got screwed over big time, and I realized that, okay, I can't be like someone who takes advantage of this, and I realized that if I'm not, like, okay, I can't be a selfish person. Like, what am I supposed to do with this? Like, how am I supposed to You know, like yeah, it's
How are you
like
supposed to be a human being now as
yeah,
opposed to before?
yeah.
One, yes, you're on the steps to becoming a superhuman being. And what are the responsibilities? Well, I'll tell you. The responsibilities, it's easy to visualize. If you look at the tarot tableau, you've got 21 cards, and at the top is the Fool, and you are in reality that Fool, but you're now acting through these different ideas or concepts that are in the other cards. All the cards have responsibility except the Fool, the self, the inner self. So there are levels of responsibility. What will come to you is if you keep in mind harmlessness to others, and you keep in mind what can you do to help someone, but you don't have to. I mean, there are those who become priests in different orders, and they think, oh, I don't want, and there's, before becoming a priest, they think, well, I don't want to do that because then I have to do all these management things. I have to manage stuff, or I have to have a congregation, blah, blah. You don't have to do any of that as you grow in this. This is something that's between you and your creator. So it's called getting to know how things work, and you may have friends that have had this experience. If you don't, then you keep some things to yourself.
Oh, for sure, for sure.
Yeah, because you don't actually, the reason you do that, one, you don't want the energy within you to dissipate, but secondly, you don't want to create blocks for other people who have yet to have this experience because, get this, everyone will eventually. Everyone
Really?
on the
I
planet.
I don't know if I
And
can
they may not do it this lifetime. They may take
okay.
lifetimes, but they're continuous. When you have this experience, you realize your continuum. You may not remember previous lives, which is not all that important. It's just to understand you're always alive, eternally.
So do you think the Cathars got it right? Like in terms of like they believe in heaven, hell, and reincarnation, that somehow it's all like I mean like our understanding of the metaphysical is only like fragmented and because from sound of it there's like evidence that there's the afterlife based not the afterlife the reincarnation people who've like they remember all their past lives and Buddha apparently even prophesied the coming of Christ like 100 years before or something like that. And I'm wondering if it's all connected, like the whole religious concepts, they're all like somehow
They're all
connected.
one. They're all
Okay,
one concept.
right.
Yes. Good. Yes, they are. If you look at the tarot, they tossed in stuff from everywhere. I always get a chuckle that the foundation of the Hebrew faith is a book called the Book of Formation. I've talked about it in some of the cards. And the Book of Formation is a diagram, mathematical diagram of a cube of space, which is a representation of God. And then I really get a chuckle that what are they doing in Mecca with that big cube?
Right.
And there it sits. And you've got to realize, well, Hammett studied under Jews and Christians. And they have this huge cube of space sitting, and that everybody prays to. Well, they don't pray to it, they pray to God, but it's supposed to be a symbol of God. And they all face it from all over the planet. I always get a chuckle on that one. And then there's the I Ching, which is also a numerological system of the cube of space. So there's lots of the yogis and Christianity.
Yes.
So what you've entered into is what's called the inner church. And the outer church works great. It takes everything as a fundamentalist would. It says this is the way it is, and therefore others don't are different, and my method of madness is better than yours. But it's all one tree. It's one tree. But if you get way out on the branches and you look at the other branches, you think you're separate and different. But if you get to the trunk, all the teachings are the same. It just depends on what part of the planet you were born in and grew up in as to what the tribal interpretation is. So
Yeah,
there.
yeah, I've heard it described as a golden thread that goes throughout all of the religions, all of the teachings.
Yes. So we have, yes, and then there's the sun, S-U-N. So we talk about that in the tarot. So the tarot is just really something that was written down with pictures. So you didn't have to speak any particular language to study it. And it was put in a deck of cards, so you could carry it anywhere. And nobody would have any idea what you were doing with it. People play with the full deck. They play gin rummy and poker with it. And but the picture cards, as an initiate, will start to trigger in your subconscious mind when you just stare at them. The symbols are arranged in such a way to get past your objective mind, which puts up all sorts of objections, to the subconscious mind to get you to the point of awakening, to get your cells changed over so you can reach this tipping point. Then you've awakened. And now what do you do with that you're now awake? And that you just move on. You have no idea. There's so much more.
So just one more question was like I kind of wonder like the tarot and stuff. I kind of got into this because I was led into it, but like um like are we supposed to, because you know what they say sometimes, like okay, for example, I wanted to order like a book on like communicating with like archangels, but I felt like, oh, I'm getting to magic, like I don't know what I'm doing, like because at the same time I want to go further, but I'm kind of pulling myself back because like I don't want to go too far out. Like I'm worried that like with disability or this insight, are we supposed? Is it okay to like use tarot to? Because you know how it is. Like most mainstream thinking is like, oh, don't explore tarot is bad. Blah blah blah. Like I realize that there's a certain separation which some people can see. So, you know what I mean? Like, is it like I mean, is it okay to explore? Like, are we supposed to do it? Did God give you this insight because He wants you to like unlock the keys and therefore explore all these different methods of, you know, understanding the world?
Understanding your mind.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Like,
you're here. I mean, people become psychiatrists and psychologists to understand how the mind works. The
right,
tarot system is just something that was put into a format to explore the mind. It's also been used for divination, which I don't do. Divination is fortune telling. I don't do that because my premise of study with the tarot is to teach, not give myself over to someone else who will tell me what's going to be happening in my life.
right.
Because the minute they finish talking, it's a new minute in the universe and anything can happen. But now I'm thinking someone else is running my life. So no, I don't do divination, and that's a choice. You can use it like an oracle, but then you have to be prepared for what you've created, because someone has come to you and they've opened themselves up as though you know more than they do. You can create a karmic difficulty for yourself. So even Paul Case, who put down a system of divination in one of his books at the back, said you really got to be careful with that. So I don't usually encourage anyone. What you can do, though, is open up your heart with the tarot cards, the keys. And though you're learning about the mind, you function and love comes through your heart. You don't have to know any of this and can become fully realized and an adept. You can be uneducated without the ability to read or write. So the use of having the keys is there to open up your heart and understand how the logistics are. It's like operating a car. Someone gets you a brand new car and they don't give you the keys. And they say, well, have a good time with your brand new car. And you look at it and you go, so what do I do with it? Nobody handed you a key and you've never seen a car before. So what would you do? You walk around it, sit in it, maybe camp out in it. It's kind of like your vehicle, your body. Nobody gave you a key. So the keys, the term for the cards, are just that. Someone now has handed you a key. And you jump in your car and you go, wow, now what do I do? You're, of course, sitting in the back seat. Nobody's told you that you have to sit in the front seat in front of the wheel and put the key in and get the thing going. And then you'll soon learn to put the key in and sit in, we're in the, not the passenger side, but the driver's side. Press the gas, and then you promptly hit a tree. Oh, nobody told you how to steer it. Okay, welcome to the world you are now in. Okay.
Right.
Well, thank you all very much. That's
I
great.
think, yeah.
About it.
Thank you,
Okay.
Margot.
Oh, you're welcome, Marianne and Bob.
It's wonderful.
Yeah, thank you.
And your name is?
Harish.
Harish.
Yeah.
Yeah, great.
Great. Good.
And hopefully we'll see you at the next call, which is on Revelation, right?
Yes. That'll be in a month. It'll be, when did I say? November 5th on Saturday morning.
That's right.
So enjoy, hopefully, hearing from you then when I give that. And of course, this lecture will be put up on my website in the next few days.
Right. How do you?
Listen to
Sorry.
it again.
So what was your website again?
Gatesoflight.com.
Okay. Okay. Thanks.
All the recordings are there, which you might enjoy.
Cool.
Yeah, all
I'm
the
on it.
here.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
Thank you all. Have a wonderful week.
Thank you. Thank you for attending.